So yesterday I wrote a fairly lengthy post accompanied by a picture comparing the terror attacks in Paris yesterday with the fight between Ronda Rousey and her opponent Holly Holm. And I think perhaps the larger point was missed, and it's my own fault because I think I left out some vital information in that post, and that vital information was possibly what the solution might be. And I had intended to do that, however, I didn't, and I take responsibility for that. And so I was reminded in the most beautiful way today when somebody posted a Russell Brand video on Facebook, and what he talked about was how when these awful things happen in the world, we have but one power, and that is, rather than dwelling on, wallowing in, focusing on the violence outside of us, the violence that we see going on in the world around us, which only serves but to bring more energy to it, so it exacerbates it, it amplifies it, it makes it more real and more okay by default. Instead, what I believe we should do, and what Russell also says, is that we should address the violence within ourselves. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we are violent people and we need to stop being violent. However, have you ever stopped to consider that if you are watching violence on TV, or if you are voting for a government that thinks it's okay to go and bomb innocent countries like Syria, or if you support the actions of Israel in Palestine, and by support, I mean you do nothing about it, perhaps. It can be that simple as just not doing anything. So if you don't do anything when you see these atrocities going on in the world around you, then you are as complicit in upholding the system of violence that exists as status quo in this world right now. And so we have to begin to unsubscribe. Well, we don't have to do anything, but it's advisable if we want to move forward, if we want to evolve. It's advisable that we unsubscribe from acts of violence, even if we are not perpetrating them ourselves. So just to reiterate, you don't have to be being a violent person. You just have to allow acts of violence to continue in the world around you, and that makes you complicit. So turn off the TV would be my advice. Stop voting into power politicians who perpetrate acts of violence on us and on our neighbours in our foreign countries. Unsubscribe from blood sports, unsubscribe from fights at the footy, unsubscribe from YouTube videos where people beat the crap out of each other. Stop watching that shit. Stop putting that message out there into the collective. Change yourself. Change your own personal vibration from one that has violence in it to one that only has love in it. And from there, we shift the collective one tiny little sliver at a time. So instead of it being the death of 1,000 cuts, whereby small acts of violence that we're exposed to over a long period of time make larger acts of violence okay, we start bringing the balance back to love by being love, by performing acts of love, random acts of kindness, and from unsubscribing from those, awful acts of violence that we see in the world around us. There are just, I won't even say there are all too many of them, because there are probably just the right amount of them so that we start to think about them and wake up. So that's all I'll say on it for now. I think I've rambled on for long enough, so thank you very much for listening, and Satnam.